Good day, my name is Fukakuji and together with me are and we are from the prestigious University of Lagos, Department of Employment Relations and Human Resource Management, Faculty of Management Sciences, and today we are going to discuss ethics, privacy and security. Stay tuned. Thank you. To start off this discussion, I'm going to start by first defining the basic terms. So let's start with ethics. What are ethics? Ethics are simply moral principles that guide a person's behavior. Next is challenges. What are challenges? Challenges are simply problems or something that needs great physical or mental effort in order to solve them. We're going to move into privacy. What is privacy? Privacy means being free from interference or intrusion. Now, security. Security is a state of being free from danger or threat. Now finally, we're going to define human behavior. What is human behavior? Human behavior simply means the way one conducts himself or himself, especially towards others.
I'll start by saying a story about the co-founder of Wikipedia, Jimmy Wales. He's someone who is so committed about the principle of free speech. In year 2008, November, a New York Times journalist, David Rod, was kidnapped by the Taliban. Then a lot of things came up, and New Times told Jimmy Wales to not cover any story about the kidnap, but Jimmy Wales told his team to just edit out anything that has to do with the story. But the situation grew worse and he just had to stop coverage. So now this has posed a challenge on his ethical principle of free speech. Well, fortunately, the following year, 2009, June, that was 7 months later, he escaped from the Taliban.
Picking up where my colleagues so I'll be talking about ethical frameworks. There are two ethical frameworks, and we have the natural law and rights and utilitarianism. The natural law and rights determines ethical and unethical behaviors based on accepted rules and regulations guiding the environment or society. Law like thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. So when people steal or when people kill, they are convicted of a criminal offense. But under utilitarianism, it judges ethical and unethical behaviors based on the consequence of each action. That means if the person steals to save a life, the consequence of that action was actually to save a life and help a person. So in that context, stealing might be considered ethical. Thank you.
So I'll be discussing on ethics and laws. Ethics and laws. These are two distinct words that are used as a result of this particular situation or environment where we find ourselves. Ethics refers to a particular way of doing things or a particular norm as a result of where one person finds it for herself. Ethics is not enforceable, but laws are enforceable. Why? Because it is created by the government. Yeah. So ethics comes as a result of the religion, the community, the environment, the school, and everything like that. That's where ethics comes from. Now, laws. Laws are grounded on ethical principles. For example, do not steal. Do not steal is an ethics, but according to the law, stealing is a criminal activity. So we can now say that for every law that has come up, it was as a result of ethics that were being put in place. Can we pause?
Ethical issues and ICT. Information technology specifies to the component that are used to store, fetch, and manipulate the information at the minimal level, with the server having an operating system. Information technology have a wide area of application in education, business, health, banking sectors, and also scientific research at large level. With the leading advancements in information technology, it is necessary to have the knowledge of security issues, privacy issues, and main negative impacts. To deal with these issues in IT society, it is important to find out the ethical issues. So now, what are the ethical issues in ICT? We have the new elements, free speech and decision making. New elements. This is an important sector of ICT because it brings out new elements. New elements is an important aspect of ethical issues in information communication technology. The new element facilitates the distribution of network and information, which leads to the hidden chances of disclosing information and violating the privacy of any individual. Then we have decision making. The second aspect of ethical issues in ICT is decision making. Decision making become a very high priority issue in ICT with great advancements in technology. If manager relies on forecast, best guesses, and luck, they will misallocate employees, services, and inventory. Then free speech. Free speech is a significant ethical issue in ICT. ICT does not allow freedom. It doesn't really allow freedom of speech for individuals.
Now let's talk about information ethics issues and the dilemmas they present. So first off, we're going to start with intellectual property rights. So is it more important to protect intellectual property rights or to make information as widely available as possible? When we talk about intellectual property rights, I'm going to use a book for an example, which is an intellectual property of a person. Now, when you look at a book, a person can take 2 or 3 years just to write a single book. Now, to write this book, the person used great mental and physical effort and used great time to produce this masterpiece. Now, when he has produced this masterpiece, the question is, should he not be rewarded for the time and effort he has taken to produce such a masterpiece, or like making it widely available on the internet? The answer is yes. He or she is meant to be rewarded monetarily for such a masterpiece that he or she has produced. Now, when you talk about it being widely available, it also depends on the owner of the intellectual property. Now, when you talk about the free publication, making it widely available to the internet, if the owner of the intellectual property decides to release maybe press release, publications, or free reports from his intellectual property and make it widely available, then there's no problem. That doesn't require any monetary rewards. But include this, when you talk about should intellectual property be rewarded or make it widely available, it depends on the owner of that intellectual property. If the owner of the intellectual property decides to make it free as charity for the masses, then there's no problem. But if such a person demands that he is rewarded for his or her intellectual property, then it should not be made widely available. And the necessary copyrights and law backing that intellectual property must be put in place so that no one will steal it. Now let's move to another issue, which is hacking. Is it ethical to break into the corporate network, not to do harm, or to demonstrate that the company needs better security? Now, let me use Apple as an example. Apple employs what they call ethical hackers. What these people do daily is that they try to hack into Apple's corporate network to get information. So, because of how Apple is confident about their network, that's why they employ these kind of people to try to hack in. Now, no one has successfully hacked into Apple's network so far, not even their ethical hacker. Is this ethical or not? Yes, I would say this is ethical, because if Apple doesn't employ this set of people to try to hack into their system every day, well, let me tell you, there are millions of people already doing that job freely. They are trying to hack into Apple's network every single day without being paid, with the motive of trying to get into their corporate network. But if Apple ethical hackers are already doing this work, then that will reduce the chances of outsiders getting into their network. So I would say that it is ethical for organizations to employ ethical hackers so as to try to hack into their corporate network so that outsiders will not get into their network. So the next ethical issue is parasitic computing. When a person gets an idea from reading another person's work and they paraphrase it in a paper without crediting the source or even remembering where it came from, is that plagiarism or is it just forgetfulness? Even before paraphrasing anything, without crediting the source of that piece of work, it is purely plagiarism. All ideas should be credited to their original owners and nothing more. Anything less than that is plagiarism. So the next ethical issue is parasitic computing. So the question is it ethical to borrow a few CPU cycles from thousands of private computers without the owner's consent when they are not being used? What if the purpose is to do medical research? To start with, do you know that taking a person's picture or video without the person's consent is against a person's fundamental human right? That means all these skills makers and thereabout, you can actually sue them. Now, not to talk of taking a person's personal computer and extracting information from them, whether it's for medical research or it's even for death research, it is illegal and it's against ethics. When you're taking a person's personal computer, especially for research, you are to consult the person and ask for the person's permission. Anything other than that is against ethics. So the next ethical issue is spamming. Is it ethical to harvest millions of email addresses from websites and send them unsolicited commercial messages? Now, for this question, it is purely unethical. Why? People's email addresses are almost the same as their mobile phone numbers. The only messages that should be sent to one email addresses are what the person subscribed to. Anything other than that is spamming. Anyways, thank God for the unsubscribe button. When me personally, I see promotions and messages from different brands that I don't know about, I simply click the unsubscribe button and they are out of my list. And also, another thing that Gmail does, which is really good, is that they sort out all these brands that look suspicious and they turn them to your spam email. So anything that you do not subscribe for is purely unethical because you are stepping into the person's private space.
Intellectual property includes songs, designs. A good example that is upcoming now is NFTs. Those are non-fungible assets. It involves using words from someone else's work and not making reference to that work. That is intellectual property. Digital rights management includes things that software developers and intellectual property holders does to control and to protect the privacy of their intellectual properties. Common cut and paste that we all know is just plagiarism, and it is an intellectual property theft. It involves someone taking another person's work and not adding reference to that work in his or her own. Societies nowadays have brought about things such as copyright, patent to protect people's intellectual properties. Those are intellectual property holders. But with the way things are getting digitized, like intellectual properties that are digitized, the laws that these societies have made to protect the intellectual properties are not really getting enforced.
Privacy. What is privacy? Privacy is the lack of intrusion or interference from third parties or unwanted persons. There are 6 principles of privacy. We have right to anonymity. This means that persons have right to keep personal information, to keep information they desire to keep personal without sharing it to third parties. The next one is right to intrusion. This means that persons can ensure that personal data they keep are not intruded by third parties. The next principle is right to view and correct personal information. This means that owners of personal information can actually view their information and correct it for any misstatements or error. The next principle is right to control the use of personal information by third parties. This means owners of personal information can control the use of their information by third parties, meaning they only share this information to third parties when they can actually determine what use the information will be to the third party. The next principle is the right to be left alone. This means that if persons are willing to share their private information, they have the right to be left alone. The next principle is protection from unwarranted searches or seizures. This means that persons can guard they have the right to guard their personal information from unwarranted searches that can lead to the theft of their personal information.
Okay, so we're talking about privacy. What is privacy? Privacy refers to the act of being secretive about someone's personal information. So we are relating privacy to business information technology, and in business information technology, one has to be very careful with any information he or she handles. Before the advent of technology, the mode of communication was majorly done through speaking, and when you want to speak, you just have to be speaking quietly so that people will not hear. But with the advent of technology, the passage of information is basically done through emails, social media, messages, videos, or one or two things. So there is need for an organization to protect his or our own information. Now, we have different elements of privacy. We have the right to anonymity. What is the right to anonymity? The right to anonymity refers to the act of carrying out some transactions or some things without people knowing about it. Another one we have is the use of surveillance technologies for privacy. This is the use of cameras, videos, CCTV, and every other technology to actually trap activities that are going on in the absence of one's presence in a business organization. This is an effective way of protecting one's privacy. But we have advantages and disadvantages of this surveillance technology. The advantage is that, number one, you are updated about what is going on at the present when one is not available, and it is actually good for security purposes and to keep track of events in case of any legal issue. You can actually bring it out as evidence. But the disadvantage of it is costly, and the other advantage of it is that many people may actually use this particular data like to gain money. They can steal it in order to gain money from it, which might affect the image of the organization. Therefore, it is advisable for every organization to have good privacy system.
Information and data shaped into meaningful or useful forms. Then, information security. Information security is the practice of protecting information by mitigating information risk. It is part of information risk management. It typically involves the preventing or reducing the probability of unauthorized or inappropriate access to data, or the unlawful use, disclosure, disruption, deletion, corruption, and modification or devaluation of information. Information security primary focus is balanced on protection of integrity and availability of data, while maintaining a focus on efficient policy implementation without hampering on the organizational policy. Then this is largely achieved through the structure of risk management process, which involves identifying information and related issues, plus potential threats, vulnerability and impact of the organization. Then evaluating the risk and deciding how to address or treat the risk, that is to avoid, mitigate, share or accept them. Then when risk mitigation is required, selecting or designing appropriate security control and implementing them. Then also monitor the activity, making adjustments as necessary to address any issue, changes and improvements in the
Next is identifying threats. Now let's talk about malware and botnets. So what are botnets? Botnets combine both robots and network and refers to collection of computers that have been compromised by malware, often through some vulnerability in their software or operating system. So what is malware? Malware are malicious softwares designed to attack computer systems. What does this botnet do? It captures sensitive information such as a person's ID, a person's social security number, credit card number, and so many other private information, and they use it against the person. I'm going to use a popular example, which is Hush Puppy. Hush Puppy was known for using this kind of botnet. It captured users' credit card numbers, IDs, social security numbers, and squandered a lot of billions of dollars from their accounts because of these botnets. So another threat is distributed denial of service, which is DDoS attack. This is a situation where zombie computers are directed to flood a single site with rapid-fire page requests, and this can cause a lot of damages to businesses because at that specific time, when a buyer wants to purchase something from the company's website, the website will be totally down. This will lead to loss of business. This will lead to loss of business, downtime, and will lead to loss of goodwill from the customers. So the next is phishing. Now, a person can start with sending a fake email to an innocent person, and that innocent person can click on that email, look at the website, which is like the original website of a business, for example, and the person will innocently type in sensitive information such as the social security number, card numbers, and all of that. And in that scenario, sensitive information can be leaked. The final one is information leakage. This can come in situations when employees loses their phone, their laptop, or when sensitive information are not shredded before they are thrown into the dumpster. And if such information gets to the wrong hands, and used for different malicious practices.
Risk assessment involves checking vulnerabilities, that is things that poses a threat to the security of people's intellectual properties. And when a risk assessment is done and the security is checked, there are going to be some security gaps that will need to be filled. So risk assessment just basically help to uncover the security gaps that people have on their intellectual properties. Risk matrix involve listing out all the vulnerabilities, then checking the rate of the level of the risk. So there are different metrics used. For that. And whosoever is taking the role of doing the matrix is going to make use of all of those lists.
Administrative security control are the processes, plans, and procedures or decisions put in place to enhance information security and to ensure that when danger occurs, the system is safeguarded. This means that in terms of system failure, in terms of system hacking, the system is still protected and there's no fault.
Technical security controls. These are control measures that have been adopted by organizations in order to prevent their data from being stolen or hijacked. Technical security controls should be adopted by every organization in order to prevent their data from being stolen, manipulated, or corrupted. Now, we have various ways of protecting one's security, one's data. You can use firewall. What is firewall? Firewalls are like boundaries that protect people from accessing a particular file at a particular period of time. Yes. And you can also use like biometric identification. Biometric identification comes in the form of using fingerprints, leg prints, and everything. Those ones they are highly technical and complex. Not everyone can actually manipulate biometrics. So it's a very good method of protecting one's data. And we also have the use of encryption. Encryption refers to using of passwords, codes, and every other method in order to protect one's data from being stolen. Yeah, so that's basically everything that you can use as an organization in order to protect your data and information.
Information security and cloud computing. Information security is protecting the information, while cloud computing is delivering of on-demand computing services over the internet on a pay-as-you-go service. You might wonder, what's that? Rather than managing file on a local storage device, cloud computing makes it possible to save them over the internet. And we have three types of cloud computing. We have the private computing, we have the private cloud computing, public, and hybrid. Private involve just a single person, public two and more. Then hybrid involve the combination of private and public. Public cloud is used for the general public. Private cloud is used by a single organization. While hybrid cloud is the combination of public cloud and private cloud, then what are the top benefits of cloud computing? Number one, cost. Cloud computing eliminates the capital expenses of buying hardware and software. Then speed. It is very easy to use. It makes it easy to use and fast. Then global scale. It is used around the world. Cloud computing also makes productivity fast and reliable. It improves the performance of the organization and makes the and secures the data and information of the organization.
The next human element is cognitive issues. This is a situation where we humans can't remember our sensitive information, such as our passwords that we use to gaining access to our private information. Now, we're going to talk about the right way to set our passwords. So the first rule is we should never include our sensitive information, such as our names, our email addresses, and our date of birth as our password, because these are easy information and people can easily guess it and guess our passwords. Now, another thing is avoid real words. Real words like cupcakes, sunshine, glasses, anything, because somebody can just guess what you like, can just put your password, okay, I like cakes and I just use cakes as my password. Somebody can guess that and easily have access to information, so we shouldn't use real words. So the right way to set our password is to include different special elements like uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and other special characters. So to reduce the cognitive load of memorizing password, we can use passphrase with the first letter of each sentence. For example, I love bicycles, got mine 2020. You can say I love L, bicycles B, underscore, got G, mine M, 2020. So the password can be ILB underscore GM 2020. So that is a standard password. Now, another final tip for creating passwords is make sure you change them regularly, 2 to 3 months, or as required by the application. So that is all for creating a standard password.
Social engineering involves manipulating or luring people to do things that are not security right. Take virus as an example. When someone wants to share a file or a document, at times viruses can be shared alongside whatsoever file is being shared. Let's use scammers as an example. I will make use of an example. When I was in my 100 level, I got a call from someone saying that he's from my bank and he asked for my personal details, things such as my bank verification number and all of that. Then I had a first thought. I was like, oh, this is from my bank. I need to answer to his call. I need to give him these details. But I had another thought and I was like, oh, this could be a scammer. So see this scenario. This actually poses a threat on people's privacy. I just use that as an example. It could also pose a threat on organizations' privacy and all of that. That is one of the things that social engineering does. So another example, viruses. Let's take for example, I want to send a video or a file to another person. Viruses can get lured into this, and now what this thing will do, it's going to disrupt whatsoever private information such person has. Now again, don't let us just limit this to individuals. Let us also look at it at the view of the organization or of different people that use different data bases. So now we can see that social engineering has an adverse effect on people's organizations and whatsoever's privacy.
Human element. Organizations have the responsibility to put in place policies and processes to ensure that personal information of persons they hold in their care are safeguarded from third parties. For example, an employee who extracts customers' information and keep it in a jacket pocket of his or hers. On leaving the organization and getting to the subway, the employee forgets the jacket at the subway and didn't inform the manager about this. But if someone gets hold of that jacket and finds the information in the jacket of the employee, In such case, the information of third parties can actually be exploited.
Now we're going to talk about Equifax case. Equifax is a consumer reporting agency. What they do is that they gather information about the creditworthiness and financial accounts of their clients, and they use this and they sell this information to people like the banks and the mortgages and the mortgage branch, and which in turn uses this information to know if they are going to grant loans to their clients based on their creditworthiness. On July 29, 2017, Equifax discovered that their dispute resolution system, the system which their consumers use to report any inaccurate information they might have been hacked. This vulnerability that the hackers exploited was called Apache Struts Web Framework. Now, this hacking problem was not disclosed by Equifax to the public. They kept it private for several months, and later on, after several months, they disclosed to the public that sensitive information such as social security numbers, credit cards, driver license have been exposed to the hands of hackers. So what did Equifax do? Equifax now created a stronger information security and developed a culture and policy that would prevent breaches in the future. Equifax also offered free monitoring, created free means for consumers to lock and unlock their credit reports. Scrambles is an international non-profit organization that protects the inboxes of millions of people worldwide. Part of what they do includes they track internet spams operation, they provide dependable real-time intelligence about threats to the internet major network, and they work with law enforcement agencies to identify and pursue spammers worldwide. So anytime any business faces any problem due to lack of adequate information security, what the law enforcement agency does is that they go straight to scrambles.
Thank you for staying out to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned a lot about ethics, privacy, and security.